The absolute factual reality is that less than 50 old white dudes control 98% of all of our shared communication, which is everything except for word of mouth and personal letters or emails. 1996 to about 2007, there were 4 FCC rule changes that allowed now one company to own MTV, VH1, CMT, BET, and Fuse music channels. Owned by one company. And the absolute decaying of any of our own beauty that we could be inspired by and uplifted by, I would say it's incalculable, except there are numbers that can be added to it. The teenage suicide rate going up 30% in 20 years is definitely representative of our lack of beauty. That these people don't have access to beauty. 50 old white dudes are doing everything they can to make sure that there is no decency on display. It serves their purpose on so many fucking levels. So what we can do about it? Run for your freaking local city councils. Absolutely. It is the most important power. It is the most accessible and easy to get control over power. And as a city council member, you get to contract with the cops. You get to decide whether jaywalking is illegal in your county. As a city council, you can also say that Verizon can not own 17 stations in your 20-station market. Hey, what up? It's Empty Space Evolves, the Ravenous Catalyst. And recently, people have kind of been calling out rappers for their lyrical content, saying, hey, you know, you could do better. It was D1. Like, it was just like, hey, you guys can do better. You guys can do better, which is true. And it's a beautiful sentiment. And I'm glad that someone said it. But the absolute factual reality is that less than 50 old white dudes control 98% of all of our shared communication, which is everything except for word of mouth and personal letters or emails. Everything else that we hear and see is controlled by less than 50 old white dudes. 1996 to about 2007, there were 4 FCC rule changes that allowed now one company to own MTV, VH1, CMT, BET, and Fuse music channels. Owned by one company. So here are the 4 FCC rule changes. I'm going to go over them real quick. Ended restrictions on number of media licenses a corporate could own, which used to be about 9, and they took it to unlimited. So billionaires bought in bulk. They started letting station owners produce their own content. Like MTV used to not be able to produce stuff to put on their channel. They would have to go outside of their own company to hire outside sources of content. They did away with restrictions on cross ownership. So before you couldn't own, if you owned a TV station, you couldn't own a radio station or a newspaper. They did away with those so that you could now own both. And they also did away with the part of the contract with cable providers in an area that said that they had to provide a studio and camera equipment and editing bays for people who wanted to produce public access content, and they had to have a channel available for that. I had a public access show. It was free. You just had to take a class for like 6 hours on how to use the camera, and that was part of a contract that cable providers could only provide the cable in the area if they did that. And they took away that it was mandatory that cable companies did that. And so local city councils everywhere sold off that part of the contract, took it out for like $1 million buy-in is what LA City Council did, which is pretty important when now 5 media companies own all the rest of our shared communication, right? The board of directors of these 4 or 5 companies that own all of our media, which none of them have a board of directors with more than 11 people on it. That's how small of a group is controlling it. And their intent is becoming more and more obvious. So they are taking this power that they put work in to get, that allows them to tell us who we are. And they are using it in the most obviously disgusting, gross, soul-sucking way that they can. They don't want black people to have role models. They don't want white people to think that black people are beautiful and have value. It's not completely like we hate black people and we want everyone to lynch them, right? It is that they want there to be bad guys and they want to be the good guy. They want us to not see each other as beautiful. And what they have white artists put out is, I'm so bored, everything sucks, I just want to kill myself music. So it's not like it's not like they're making white people just put out beautiful shit either, okay? And the absolute decaying of any of our own beauty that we could be inspired by and uplifted by, I would say it's incalculable, except there are numbers that can be added to it. The teenage suicide rate going up 30% in 20 years is definitely representative of our lack of beauty. That these people don't have access to beauty. And so giving everybody the big old fuck you is like very valid choice at that point. That our youth are slaughtering themselves at that rate is just a huge fail on all of us. We have all failed at ensuring that there's decency at least given to these children, right? Like that we're not even trying to create a world where there is decency. And I wouldn't say we. I'd say 50 old white dudes are doing everything they can to make sure that there is no decency on display. Okay. It serves their purpose on so many fucking levels. But, I mean, they definitely have instilled this sense of like, well, that's all there is. Like, it's an MC shortage, we just don't have any MCs that are writing anything good. These are all that they want to sing about. Right. That the rap community's come together and been like, hey, everybody, let's put at least like 4 commercial breaks into our songs, aka shouting out to luxury items. Lil Wayne, Drake, and Chris Brown all mention Birkin purses in their songs. $100,000 purses. None of them own purses. Like, why would they shout out to Birkins? Like, oh my God. But anyway, like, and especially when someone else in your genre has already shouted out to Birkin purses. Why would you put it in your fucking lyrics? Like, but, so, yeah, here's the 4 companies. Like, in 1983, there were 50 dominant media companies. Now, in 2021, there are 4. These 4 companies own about 90% of the media in the United States. Like, Viacom-CBS owns BET, MTV, CMT, Fuse, and VH1. And total, all of those music channels play maybe 10 hours of videos a week, right? And they will play the same video more than once in an hour. Let's get into their board of directors, because 4 companies and you're like, oh, well, that's still like 4,000 people, right? Nah, okay. None of these board of directors have more than 11 people on them. So Century 21, Fox, Comcast. Here is their board of directors. That's it. Like, this is it. Paul Ryan. That's it. Well, here's Viacom's, just like Viacom CBS, which is now merged with Paramount. But so gross. So, like, all board of directors for freaking Warner Brothers. This is a fucking board of directors. Like, that's the people who decide every single thing that Warner Brothers Media puts out. So, MCs, like, on the real, dude, like, I'm not trying to put it on you, but, like, A$AP Rocky. Sony paid him $3 million for his first album, right? Once you get that $3 million, you can do anything you want. You can say anything you want into a microphone, like, because that's what I do. I would take the $3 million and I would rap about garbage. But I would take that $3 million and I would expose their shit. Like, that's what I would do with it. You know what I mean? And yet, I find Drake so disgusting because that cat doesn't need money anymore. But his lack of effort into creating anything that has, like, that is inspirational, okay? Anything that is going to take the human soul, spirit, mind, whatever, and cause it to grow, okay? These are all, like, degrading. And I mean that, yes, degrading in that, like, oh, that's shameful, but degrading in that it is eroding away what we were supposed to be building up with beauty, okay? And again, look at the teen suicide rate. If we were putting out uplifting, beautiful art, then the teens would be fascinated by life. But it's just ugly garbage. And they are upset that us as adults have allowed this to just be all we're giving them. Like, this is, here, enjoy. But, I do not digress. So, what do we do about it? We definitely change the FCC rules. They have to be reviewed every 4 years to see if there is any harm coming from it, right? We own the airwaves. Our tax dollars paid for all the research that went into finding the radio waves that are coming from pulsars in outer space. Okay, that is what provides us with dense enough waves that data can transfer across it. So what we can do about it, run for your freaking local city councils. Absolutely. It is the most important power. It is the most accessible and easy to get control over power. And as a city council member, you get to contract with the cops. You get to decide whether jaywalking is illegal in your county. As a city council, you can also say that Verizon can not own 17 stations in your 20-station market. But anyway, that is why hip-hop nowadays is different than hip-hop in the 90s. The radio stations could kind of play whatever they wanted. Like, there was a playlist, but a DJ could be like, oh, I got this mixtape at a party last night, and I want you guys to hear. They could do that still. The college radio stations are even owned by these fucking 50 motherfuckers. And again, the FCC changed rules to make that happen. So it isn't something that's just like, whoa, nobody saw that coming. It isn't something that happened on accident. You don't end up owning 98% of all the shared communication accidentally. And then what they choose to do with it once they own it is what reveals their intent. Because they absolutely could be putting out amazing, uplifting, evolutionary lyrics and artists. Like, they could be doing that. But